This is
Hello,
Kitty
ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. I'm Diana Clarion, also known as the Lavender Lady, and I have a little panel here to discuss an article that just came up in the Independent a few days ago, dateline July 8th, and it is entitled "Anti-Trans Activists Disrupt Parade by Lying Down in the Street to Protest Lesbian Erasure." So, before we get started discussing that, why don't we go around the table and let everybody know who we've got here? How about you, Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate, also known as Bionic Dance. I have a YouTube channel where I debunk religious videos, and you will subscribe if you're not already, or I will send my minions after you.
And Snarky, how about you?
Yes, I'm Mrs. Snarky. I have a channel. I usually debunk woo and stuff like that, or at least challenge it and give my opinions on it. And I also co-host multiple streams with the Godless Iowan.
That sounds good. And how about Faye? What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm Faye, also known as the Wonder Lady. Right now I've been doing a lot of feminist streams, satire, and soon to come true crime.
That sounds extremely, extremely good. Okay, we'll get started here on the article. Yes, I still use paper. From the Independent, we have anti-trans protesters have disrupted the Pride in London parade, lying down on the ground at front of the march until officials persuaded them to move on. The small group carried banners and flyers stating, "Trans activism erases lesbians," and describing the trans movement as anti-lesbianism. Other LGBT plus groups were quick to condemn the stunt and questioned why the protesters were allowed to lead the march uninterrupted until it reached Trafalgar Square. Okay, now that's what happened there, and that term came up. Lesbian erasure. I guess I'll go around the table and ask, I guess I'll start with you, Kate, because you're closest to the people who were protesting, at least in demographic. Am I trying to erase you?
Not that I've noticed, no. I mean, the thing is, I had to look this up. I've always lived in fairly progressive places, and I'd never heard of this before. I mean, back when I was in Seattle and I was hanging out with the goth scene, there were plenty of lesbians and plenty of trans folk and a lot of overlap between the two. And nobody seemed to think that one group was trying to get rid of the other, absorb the other. None of that really came up. I've never heard of this until now.
Yeah, because what I've heard a good deal of is that some people seem to think that we are trying to force you to have sex with us. And
how do you force someone to have sex unless it's rape?
There's the point, and where they're bringing up rape culture and all this other happy stuff. Snarky, Faye, you want to join in on this?
Yeah, I don't understand why. Like, if we have a group, why does it follow that they're going to automatically erase another group? That just doesn't make sense. There's a way that people can coexist, and they have. And I really don't understand the reason behind this. I don't at all. I don't understand why it was allowed. It must be. Do we have like a source for like the propaganda that they're following, or what? I don't.
Okay, right now all I have is what's in the Independent. Now I know that's been discussed around the internet. Riley Dennis weighed in. I think Zinnia Jones has had something to say, and I think they both react favorably to this. And while we're here, I noticed that Artie is in. Why don't you say hi to everybody and let us know who and what you are?
Hi to everybody. I'm today's token cis white male.
Well, we can get to you in a moment.
And I am very concerned about what might be happening to my lesbian friends. and their apparent disappearance because of trans people. Because Diana, I don't know what you're doing to my lesbians, girl, but you got to stop it. I can't afford to lose any more fucking friends.
I think we can even come around to you in a personal manner, if you will, because this, I think, would apply even to, let's say, straight men
Yeah, I don't know how
dating
it
trans
couldn't. Otherwise,
women,
it doesn't make
or
sense.
any of the other combinations. I mean, you could have trans man dating a straight woman, that sort of thing. Um, as I say, what I don't understand, and what I don't think anybody else here understands quite either, is how lesbians are being erased or anything like that. But why don't we go on? How about, rather in a global sense, do any of you folks have any ideas on personal preferences, how they might work?
You mean like why they exist?
Well, in other words, let's look for something as how your personal preferences would fit into the global scheme as who you would like to date. That's, for example, I myself, I really don't care what hardware you have. As long as I'm attracted to the person, I don't have a problem with what's going on that I can't see right now, anyway. I don't know that it would make any difference, and I really don't see. Well, being a trans woman myself, I don't know how personalities would get into the thing. And there's another thing I might bring up. Another piece of this article. One of the protesters told LGBT outlet Pink News, "We want to get the L out of pride. A man cannot be lesbian. A person with a penis cannot be lesbian." And I think that's part of where I was headed. I have my ideas, but let's hear yours first.
Well, that sounds weirdly conservative. That sounds like someone who would be against all trans people, like in total.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strange to hear someone who's LGBT saying something like that. I don't get it.
I was seriously hoping that you were going to be, after having had some time to look into it, you were going to be able to supply us with and this is their justification for having made this claim.
But they don't make any.
I just don't understand how is it not it's not even latent bigotry. It's just straight up bigotry to make a suggestion like that. That first, that because you're a lesbian, I have to call you gay because we have to eliminate lesbian from what?
Well, I mean, you'd think there'd be like gay erasure too.
Right.
But I haven't heard. I mean, then again, I've only barely heard of lesbian erasure, but I mean, I've certainly never heard of gay erasure. It hasn't come up. Now, okay, maybe this makes me a horrible person, but the plumbing a person has does kind of matter to me because penises creep me right the fuck out. They're scary. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's kind of a lesbian thing. I've heard that before.
Yeah. But barring that, like, I mean, personality is all that matters. I mean, ask me whether or not I might go for, say, a post-op trans woman, and I might have to think about it, but it's definitely not an automatic no.
Okay, so I start saving up, right?
I interrupted Faye a while ago, and I wanted to hear what
Oh, let's bring her in. Yes,
I'm sorry.
you fall into the cracks. Come on, speak up.
What I'm curious about is whether or not I don't have anything wise or any understanding about this at all. Is it because of women transitioning to men and doing a male female, a trans male female type of relationship and sort of like I can't even think of the right words, like doing that instead of a female female? You know what I mean? Or is it the trans women that they're having issues with, whether they're post-op or pre-op?
I
mean,
think.
like, which is it? I mean, they're not being very clear here.
No, they're not, and part of that might be intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it because trans is such a kind of like a broader spectrum than we. I I I-
I
I've
will.
met women who've transed to men. You can't tell. You can't.
Well, okay, there's a couple of times I've been to a dyke bar where I don't know why this was so, but you get a lot of trans men with their shirts off tending bar.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know. It seems, I mean, there's no problem with having trans men in a dyke bar. That's not a big deal, but it seemed to be like where they would hang out. And I'm like more than anywhere else. And it just seemed kind of incongruous. Like I have no problem with it, but it just seemed like a strange choice.
It is.
Yes.
I don't lack any comfort being in gay bar, dyke bar, biker bar, whatever. In fact, I'm more uncomfortable in a titty bar than anything else. Just
Says-
am. I just am. I hate the smell. I hate the glitter. I hate fake tits. I
Don't blame him.
I don't. Yeah, that one's new to me. Anybody topless in a dyke bar, just anybody topless in a dyke bar, just strikes me as funny.
Yeah, I think
I
that's.
don't see the point.
Well, I mean, the few trans men I've talked to, they are like, I get to have my shirt off in public finally. Because that's apparently a big goal for someone who's always wanted to be a guy, I guess, is to not be confined.
I guess I get that, but I don't see why
Yeah.
your workplace becomes the place to do that.
Well, okay,
If
to
it's
be
the only
fair,
place you
though,
have.
almost every LGBT bar I've been in has this air of sexuality to it that most straight bars don't.
Sure,
Even
that's
if
true.
they
Yeah, I've
have one,
noticed.
it's yeah. So
I am not. I hate to say it, but then I'll say it. I'm not really a fan of gay bars, at least those I've been in, because of that overt sexuality going on. Either you've got bartenders making out behind the bar, or you've got gay porn on the screens over the bar. And I mean, if that's what you like, go for it, but it's not me. Um, so, okay, now, because I don't like it, am I forcing the bars to take it down?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, you are.
Are you
Yeah.
telling anyone that you're being deleted because of it?
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if it's not a case of deleting, but the fact that it's sexual competition.
Perhaps.
Oh, that's
I
an
mean, that's the
interesting
way
one.
That makes
I'm
it even
looking
creepier.
at it. Well, I mean, come on. I went to an all-girls college. There's a lot of sexual competition.
There is. There really
And
is.
when you've got nothing but women around, it can get pretty freaking nasty.
Hmm.
You know, now that
Oh, there's nasty and there's nasty. I was not thinking that kind. I was thinking the other kind. But still.
It's almost as if somebody mentioned ice cream.
Oh my!
Mm.
Yum,
you
yum,
know.
yum, yum.
Um,
Oh my!
He's got out the whooping stick.
Ah,
But you bring up something that I had not thought of. I've thought of it in the past, but it's been in the back of my mind for a long time. The competition. When I transitioned, my ex and I were still talking, and she was the kind who did not do makeup, did not do any of the pretty stuff or anything like this until I transitioned. And then all of a sudden, it's all the makeup, it's all the fingernail polish, the toenail polish, everything like this. And the timing was just too close in my mind to be anything else. So, could there be some competition thing driving what's going on?
Well, did she ever express to you that she felt like she didn't make herself attractive enough to keep you in the relationship, or as you were, or whatever?
Okay, not to my memory. No, she did not.
Because that strikes me as being as much of a reasonable thing. I know, especially among men, if and one of my lesbian friends, Fitz. She was bi and married to a guy, and then somehow he managed to fuck that up. And now she's married to a lesbian, and the whole notion of her ever having been bi kind of disgusts her, because she's kind of adopted her wife's strictly lesbian opinion that all penises are icky, when she spent the first 23 years of her life as a bisexual.
See, I actually thought maybe it was more a matter of she felt the need to be girlier, where it's like, now I've got someone in my life who like has started out, I assume, mildly masculine, I don't know, but then starts saying, I'm assuming, and then she's
more
like,
than mildly.
Okay, fair enough. And then she's like, well, this is causing me some confusion. I need to girl it up just to make sure I'm still what I am. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing, but that's...
You know, that guess might not be too far off the mark. I mean, the way things went, she did the girly thing for quite a bit until we just were not talking to each other very much anymore. And when we did talk, she had dropped the pretty, possibly because I wasn't around that much. And let's see, Artie had mentioned something about bisexuality, and our resident expert, have you anything to say about that?
About bisexuality? Like what specifically?
I mean, how it might apply to this situation. When Artie was talking about the friend who had married a man and then had married a woman, and sort of changed positions on that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like, if you get into, it's kind of different for bi people, because when you get into a long-term relationship, you pretty much look at it like, okay, this is who I'm with the rest of my life, or at least I do. So, I mean, it could be that kind of dynamic where it's like, well, I'm going to deny this part of me that's attracted to men or women or whatever.
By the same token, her wife acts as though she doesn't have periods. And if you remind her that she is in fact a woman who has periods every month and has all of the accoutrement that goes along with having that weekly or monthly visitor, she flips out because she just doesn't accept that about herself. And that also drives that dynamic in their relationship. I love them both. They're like family. And I think I've mentioned to at least one of you that when they got married, I felt like, okay, this is a little incestuous for me.
Yes.
There are a lot of like lesbians who seem to vaguely identify as trans men, but because it's more acceptable, I guess, to be female or feminine, that like they sort of just decide to be butch.
Yeah, she's very butch. She's a firefighter. She got married in a tuxedo.
Okay, yeah.
She's...
I don't know. I like to tell people that I'm bisexual because if I want sex, I have to buy it. Yeah.
Yeah, got that joke.
Faye, I think you were starting to speak up. Did you have any ideas?
Well, I mean, it's like I was on a poly stream where people were discussing that, and I've kind of noticed, like, throughout my life that in terms of like bisexuality or pansexuality or polyamory, people get a little sexually threatened if they're not confident people, and I think some people can't handle sexual competition. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of as quote unquote lesbian erasure.
I mean, well, that's another thing. I have to wonder, like, how much of it is literally sexual and how much of it is culture, because I was looking up on Google to sort of do a little homework for this, and I did see something about trying to preserve dyke culture. So I wonder, like what it is about trans women that these protesters thought would go away if they were more accepting of them.
But were they specific about trans women, or
yes,
was it trans and it's
okay?
So
Now
they're
that's
gynophiles.
Yes, yes, yes. And I have to wonder, I mean, because I have never met anyone that made me think, oh, this is going to somehow like cultural appropriation. I'm not going to be who I am anymore because of you. I've never,
Yeah.
no, that's never come up.
This sounds very insecure.
Now, something that was just mentioned that I don't think I'd heard. I don't think I'd heard the two words put together before. Dyke culture. What is that?
Well, I mean, there is a lot to it. I mean, because there's certain ways to dress. There's like being girly and bull. I'm trying to remember,
Yeah, there's
like
drinking
bull
Miller
dyke
Lite.
and
There's
baby dyke and all of
bringing.
those.
You have to bring
And
Miller Lite
lipstick
with you to the
dyke.
party. You have to leave with whatever beer you didn't drink when you leave.
You bring a U-Haul to your first date.
Second date.
Second.
I
Yeah.
thought it was
That much I know.
first. Stop
Yeah,
it.
and your Forester has to be a different color than her Forester.
So,
Okay.
but I mean, and you have to listen to the Indigo Girls. Yeah.
See, my
the
roommate lied
cranberries
to
will
me.
not do. It has to be Indigo Girls.
See, my
Yeah.
roommate lied to me. She told me it was the first date.
No, it's definitely the second
Yeah,
date.
because
Yeah.
you might not even know her name after the first date.
Right.
So-
Oh,
so-
hey, not to bring this into too scientific a place, but I mean,
Why
you know
not?
what? Well, you know what happened? What happened before the Big Bang, the big second date?
Oh, dear. I love that.
You know what caused the Big Bang? Digital stimulation.
Mm. Yeah.
Already interesting that you bring up the cranberries. I love the cranberries. Am I dykier than I thought?
I love the cranberries too. So,
Yeah,
So,
I was
Wow.
just thinking
So not my
back to
band.
Lilith Fair and who had performed at Lilith Fair, and I actually don't remember if Cranberries performed or not, but I think they did.
oh yeah.
so basically, what I'm hearing is that lesbians are dropping the lesbian label for queer. So they're self-erasing themselves. It's not really trans women who are erasing them. They're kind of doing it out of like spite.
I don't know if it's spite necessarily. It sounds more like fear in a way, or if not fear, at least like trying to preserve themselves somehow. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. The articles I read, I was like, I've never heard of this. No one's ever said it to me, and this is the first time I've encountered it, and I didn't really get it.
Yeah, I think the Godless Iowan put it very well in the chat. So basically, we're talking about women who dress and act manly but still want to be considered as women, getting offended by women who want to transition to men.
Oh, getting offended
I don't know.
by.
No, I didn't
I'm
get
not
that
sure
out
the
of this
attire
article,
has
but it
anything
might
to
be
do with it.
there.
I think the last bit of that might have been accidentally reversed, but still.
Yeah,
Okay.
being offended by men who want to transition into women.
Yeah.
Might be
Now that
more accurate.
Actually,
leads me-
okay, so Michael in the chat says, is it perhaps resentment? Some lesbians thinking trans women are actually still men and trying to push them away. Well, I mean, that part of the article that you read said that that's exactly what it is that men will always be men, is what it sounded like.
Yeah, and that leads right into one of the comments that was left on the Independent article. It's a little long. Let me try to see if I can get it in here. I think this refers to something above. What's with all the stupid quote marks in the title? Lesbians are pro-lesbianism, not anti-trans. Be trans. No one is being literally violent to you. Just don't pretend your lady parts are a lesbian penis. And that's interesting. We might come back to that. They ain't. TRAs are all about lesbian erasure. These women were incredibly brave. And since when is it transphobic to say that lesbians are female homosexuals? Okay, I don't get that. The are for pity's sakes. I think this person was a little.
They drink like I think.
Yeah, something like that. Shouting transphobia to shut down debate doesn't change biology. A penis will never be female, and anyone who is so right on lefty that they cannot see how the cotton ceiling, that's a new one to me, is basically a corrective rape procedure. I think they meant coercive, but I'm not sure, is beyond me. If you think that you are a woman, lose the penis. Otherwise, leave women alone. How can an organization which claims to support gay women be so blind to men getting gratification simply by wearing a female costume when gays have fought so hard to erase gender conformity?
Now it sounds like they're talking about either pre-op trans women or drag queens. It doesn't sound like they're talking about like every part of trans culture.
And who the fuck hates drag queens except for?
I know they're
Some of my best friends are drag queens.
Yeah.
fabulous.
There's so much more to being a trans woman than just putting on a dress and makeup. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
We watched you fold your clothes last night.
that's oversimplification. There's so many like non sequiturs and fallacies in that. So these are just people that don't seem to think very well.
And this leads into an article out of Time Magazine. Looking for the date line here. Here we go. 29 October 2015. So take this as you will. The title, the headline is Transgender Surgery Can Cost More Than $100,000. And the article goes into how much it costs us to get the various things we need to get, such as electrolysis, such as gender surgery, that sort of thing. And that leads right back to how did they put it? If you think you're a woman, lose the penis. I'd love to do that. I can't afford it.
Right.
A lot of us can't.
Actually, there was a guy in Florida this weekend that removed his brothers with his mouth.
What?
God.
Wait a minute.
I saw the posting on. It was from a Miami news channel.
If you can, send me that link.
Guy catches his brother having sex with his cousin and bites off his brother's dick.
How do you
Holy
even...
shit, man.
That's a little
drastic,
It's
isn't
a
it?
sexual competition issue.
Yeah,
I'm just
everything
trying to
about that is so
picture
wrong.
how he manages to hold his brother down enough to get his choppers onto the guy's cock.
Like, did he take it sideways or did he go?
Maybe they were having
Was it more like an
suck-off
ear of corn
competition.
or a popsicle?
Oh no!
I knew we needed you in here, Artie.
I mean, you'd think the guy would go, "Where's a knife?" His first instinct was teeth. I
don't know, but it's that whole lose the penis thing that really gets to me, because I'm not the only one who really cannot afford what I'd like to get. A lot of us cannot afford that. And what are we supposed to do in the meantime? I've come to the point where, okay, I don't mind being alone. There are some advantages, but I hate being lonely, if you get the difference there.
Right.
And am I supposed to continue being lonely simply because there's this thing between my legs that really doesn't belong there? Is that what they expect? Because that sounds very Christian to me. That's the same sort of thing that John MacArthur is
think
advocating.
I think that's what she was saying when she said this whole thing sounds very conservative and that it's,
yeah, it does. It sounds right wing. And actually, in one of the articles, didn't someone say something about like rabid lefties? I mean, that's the last thing I expect to hear someone in the LGBT community saying.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we are all a little left of center, and then there are those of us who are slightly left of Bernie Sanders. But I don't know very many of us at all. There are some who claim to be, but I don't know very many at all who are on the conservative side of the fence.
Yeah, I have a friend of
I've
mine
met
that's
some.
a log cabin.
So speaking of the whole LGBT label or whatever, was asked by the Godless when actually it was asked by Aaron Raw. He asked him about all the different labels that are being used, and wouldn't it be easier just to refer to people as gender cis, gender queer, sexual cis, sexual queer, or something a little more simple, maybe?
What was this during the interview that Matt? Okay.
I mean,
I think
I
you
have
started
to.
to say something.
I do kind of like it when things can get specific. I mean, I can understand why we wouldn't want that in sort of a social or cultural sense. But I mean, if you've seen some of the arguments I've been having recently about how to classify atheists, and it's really a matter of being as accurate as possible, but that's just me being pedantic. And I think that it could totally get in the way of this situation. But at the same time, some part of me is like, yeah, but I want to be able to draw that Venn diagram, right? And so I'm torn between the two.
I have the same issue when it comes to pronouns. But, I mean, to me, it's like assigning someone a gamer label. I know a lot of people by their gamer name rather than their real name. And it's very hard for me to think of them as, say, Jerry. When I don't know them as Jerry. I called them by a different name for 13 years.
It was really weird the first time I went to go see my friend Weld Tanuki, who's a Twitter friend of mine. We met because we're both fans of Poisoning the Well. And it was weird to have somebody that I'm looking at and can touch call me Artie.
And yeah, to me,
when
that's your name.
Yeah, and when I first started doing streams, it actually bothered me for people to call me Artie. I'm like, well, that's not even my real fake name.
Well, I've got plenty of people who call me Bionic or BD. I mean, like, they know my name is Kate, but they just can't do it.
I learned your name was Kate today, so.
All right.
If I continue to call you Bionic, I apologize now that I know your name is Kate.
No apology necessary. That, like, nicknames are fun. It's just that, like, well, some people just have gotten into the habit for so long.
Right.
The funny thing is, I mean, Kate isn't even necessarily my first name, but the only person who calls me Catherine is my mom when she's fucking pissed.
Yeah,
so,
one of my really good friends, everybody calls her Aunt Kate, and her name is Catherine as well. And the only person that calls her that is a 92-year-old mom.
Are you Kate with a K or a C?
K.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
I'm Artemis with a C.
Well, actually, it's funny. I used to hang out with a group of people where there was like 5 or 6 of us named Kate, and to keep track of who was who online, we all took different spellings. And there was a K-A-T-E, there was a C-A-T-E, there was a K-A-Y-T-E, there was a K-A-I-T. I was K-E-I-G-H-T. So, yeah.
That's funny in that when I was growing up in the family, there were 5 Edwards. I was Eddie. The so-called father was Edward. One of his brothers-in-law was Little Ed. Little Ed's son was Eddie Allen. And then there was Asshole, because he took off on his wife, leaving her with a babe in arms. But yeah, I can relate to that.
There was no Edmund?
No, there wasn't really. It was a Slovak-Polish household, so I don't know that they were big on Edmund. My so-called father's full name, was Edward Adolf.
That explains everything, honey.
And he really hated that middle name.
That's
I don't know why.
That's almost as bad as Barack Hussein Obama, right?
Yeah. Right, but I don't understand why he hated that middle name, because he was so much like him.
Maybe that's why he hated it.
It's really weird. I don't know if it still exists, but there's a cartoon called Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah.
Yes, I know the one.
I've never seen it, but I remember its existence.
Yeah, I used to have a magnet. I can remember I was living in LA when the Cartoon Network started, and somebody rented a car. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car in Cerritos. And somebody came through the office that was working for the brand new Cartoon Network and had a box full of shit. And all the employees got stickers for all these new shows. And I can't remember what all of them were, but they all became these huge fucking blowout things that, big cult followings and everything. And I had these magnets from before they were ever aired, and I lost the damn things. I have no idea where the hell they were, but they would have been cool little pieces for, somebody that's a bigger nerd than I am about that shit to have. But alas, one more thing I threw out for no fucking reason that could have been money, but wasn't.
So I'm wondering, to kind of get back to the topic, how is it that we can best respond to this protest of, about lesbian erasure?
Mercenaries and assassins.
Yeah.
No.
Uh,
I don't know. I
heavy
mean,
doses of boiled cabbage.
you have to deal with people who have what is either fear or bigotry or all of the above. I don't know. It's just, I mean, how do you deal with it? You can't just pound them with something. You have to tell them, no, it's okay. It's not going to like really hurt you in any way. And how do you convince people of that?
I think it's a question of identity politics.
Mm.
Because this is kind of like, I saw a documentary where deaf people were upset at another deaf person for getting a hearing aid, for actually getting hearing. And they were kind of like, what the hell did you do to yourself? Because they have their own culture. And the thing is, it's just like, this sounds like another issue of tribalism, to tell you the truth.
A little
I
bit.
mean, as a straight person, I really can't say much about how difficult it must be for some people to, quote unquote, come out of the closet, to live a publicly gay life, lesbian life, queer life, bisexual life, trans life. Just like, life is difficult no matter what your labels are. And if you get involved in a culture, like, I have a very good friend, gay, and he kept talking about his people whenever we'd hang out, to the point where I bit his head off. I'm like, you're gay, you're not from Mars. Oh, what do you mean you're freaking people? It's like, you're still my people too, dumbass.
Yeah.
It's just like, I got so mad at him. He was like, oops, sorry. And it's just like, it's kind of like that. I think there's a little identity politics, a little bit of tribalism, and maybe a reality check needs to be issued. But I don't know how to do that tactfully, because I've never been tactful once in my life.
Well, I wonder if there's even anything like outside about it where they're afraid, well, if trans women are accepted as lesbians, then all of a sudden lesbians are getting double the hate from conservatives or something. I don't know. But I mean,
How many women?
You know,
How many women was this? Wasn't it just like 10 or something at the head of the parade?
I think so. But if you look up the articles, there's more than that. It was just that's how many decided to get up and lie down.
I'm just
well, they did. I mean,
I'm just hoping their numbers stay this limited, and I don't ever have to address this in reality. Because I agree, Faye. I'm not sure how I would be tactful. They're talking about me having friends who lose who they are, and I can't wrap my brain around what the concern is.
No, me neither. It sounds like the concern is just that they're insecure and they just can't.
Yeah.
It sounds like the same kind of hate that LGBT started fighting 60 fucking years ago.
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of like Bionic Dance said a while ago, that it's either fear or bigotry. I would argue that, most bigotry stems from irrational fear. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. It's weird because there's always the thing about like what people have done to themselves. I mean, I there's the whole like not thinking that trans women are real women thing, and I'm like, I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, they're being assholes about it.
Right.
I don't know.
Does it really matter what constitutes a real woman?
It shouldn't. I mean, obviously for medical reasons, it might matter.
Well,
it might make
there
a
are instances where it would matter, but
but I mean,
it just doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't fucking matter.
And I have to say, I don't think that conservatives could hate women any more than they already do, whether they're trans or not.
Well, there is
whether
that.
They're gay or not. I mean, there's they might actually like trans women more because, you know, well, no,
Well, I
they
mean,
can't have babies, so therefore they can't regulate that womb. You know what I mean?
well, the thing is, though, is as far as they're concerned, there is a time when men were men and sheep were nervous.
True.
Sorry, had to go there. Had to go there.
It's
They-
not rape. Those goats were dead.
Right.
That was a bad joke.
Oh God.
So actually, though, Faye, it's funny you brought up deaf people and hearing aids and the whole tribalism thing. Like,
Yeah.
like thinking that if they are deaf, they should stay deaf or whatever.
Hmm.
On the one hand, I get where they're coming from, but on the other hand, I have some very personal